What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you another fun hybrid for Blue Eyes. This time it is the turn of blue-eyed Mimighouls. Now the Mimighoul engine itself is actually very minimal inside the deck, for the pure fact that you only really need to rely on 7 cards in the main deck and then 3 in the extra deck. But even those 3 in the extra deck, you could really focus on at least one of them, and then everything else kind of lets you adapt it to how you see fit. You can make it more Mimighoul orientated if you want to, because the main bridge with inside this entire element is that your normal Blue Eyes combo can work its way into Ancient Fairy Dragon, which can get you to any field spell in the entire game, meaning you can get to the Mimighoul dungeon, which adds you another layer of control for during your opponent's turn, when they're not being able to either utilize normal summon monsters, or you're able to kind of control the way that they try to build their field, and then you're obviously backing that all up with your Blue Eyes monsters, can be very tricky for them to deal with. You also have the main bridge that your Mimighoul dragon is a level 1 dragon, so that can search you out a Mimighoul spell or trap, which can of course be dungeon if you wanted to, but more so or not you'll be Mimighoul room, and then you'll work your way into your Blue Eyes cards. So you're basically increasing your Blue Eyes starters by 3 in order to get you to that route, and then of course you do have Mimighoul dungeon that can be quite effective to kind of slow your opponent down, control their field presence and everything else in between. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So we're going to be starting off with the Blue Eyes cards themselves. I'm not going to spend forever on this, as the lineup pretty much stays the same. So of course you do play your 2 Blue Eyes White Dragon and your 1 Jet Dragon, followed up by your triple Maiden and of course triple Sages, and then still the 1 Master. So you can actually sub the Master out for any other Mimighoul monster that you want to. Like I said, I've kept the Mimighoul lineup at a very minimum, for the pure fact that you want to be a little bit aggressive, you want to be a little bit fast, you want to get to your Mimighoul room. That's when you're going to control your opponent, come back to your turn and then push for the OTK. But you can of course change it up a little bit and put more reliance on the Mimighoul cards if you want to. Start looking into Maker, Archfiend, Slime, you name it. And then of course you got your triple Wishes, and then the 1 Mausoleum, 1 Roar, followed up by the Majesty, and of course the True Light. So these are all pretty standard on the Blue Eyes lineup. None of this really needs to change. The only thing that really comes down to personal preference is whether you like to play Master or not. If you don't, that is absolutely fine. I just like the option that when you're going off of the back of your normal Sage combo, if your additional normal summon does become Master, that can be quite helpful for you. But more times than not, your additional normal summon will be one of your Sage or Maiden, ideally the Sage, because you would have gone through your Mimighoul Dragon as your first starter. So the Mimighoul Dragon, the reason this is your ideal starter is that during the main phase you get the effect to add on normal or special, if it was normal or special, you get to add a Mimighoul spell or trap from the deck to the hand. Now of course you can go directly for your Mimighoul dungeon, but you can pretty much get to that through the Ancient Fairy Dragon, and then if you wanted to add in another field spell, of course you can change it up a little bit more. But the one you are going to want to go for more times than not off of the dragon will be the room. Now if you do go down a reliance a little bit more on the type of Mimighouls or the amount of Mimighouls you're going to be playing in the deck, that's of course when you can start looking into going stuff for your Mimighoul Maker instead, maybe even Mimighoul Charm. But this version of the build is less so about putting monsters on your opponent's field and then trying to flip them up or trigger them, or utilizing cash monsters a little bit more than that. You actually just kind of want to use Dragon as your starter. You want to work your way into the room, so you've got that as a control aspect during your opponent's turn. Go into your Blue Eyes combo, then work your way into the dungeon, which then of course will give you a follow-up for another dragon of the next turn, or any of your other, something like a Mimighoul Fairy if you want to try and extend a little bit earlier on. So you've got a couple of different options you can look into, and it really just comes down to how much you want to work into it. The other benefit of something like the Mimighoul dungeon is of course if you wanted to keep this as a minimum, which it is, what you're going to be doing is when you use your Mimighoul room, you're actually going to be summoning the dragon. So you can even summon the dragon from the deck or from the hand. And then that's when you're going to try and control your opponent to flip it up and destroy all of their monsters. And that's really going to put them under a bit more of a bind under the dungeon as well. So you're kind of getting a lot more for your bang for your buck while keeping the engine at a very tidy limit. So the other one obviously we do play is the 1 Master. This is purely in here because we do play the 1 Throne. If you choose not to play the Throne, you can cut the Master out. But it's just one of them options that if you wanted to go down for a rank 1 option, which you can utilize stuff like your Maiden, you can also utilize stuff like your Mimighoul Fairy as an extender, your Dragon, your Sage, your Master. If you choose not to go down a Synchro route, which is entirely optional for you as well, that can really kind of slow your opponent down, and that's when it kind of gives you a bit more versatility. And a lot of people might flip a D-Barrier and you're like, okay cool, I'll just go into a rank 1 anyway, and then try and push from my aggressive increases off the back of dragons and masters and everything else in between. The last one is the one Mimighoul Fairy. Now the reason we go for this one is that this one is during the main phase. You get to special summon this card from the hand to your opponent's field in defense, or if you control a Mimighoul, you get to special summon it face up on the field. Now like I said, it's less reliant on giving your opponent monsters. The only one you're going to want to give them will be Dragon, because you are playing such a limited amount of the Mimighouls. But then the idea is that once you control, like, normal summon down Dragon, special summon down Fairy, great, I've got another level 1 on the field. I can then go Dragon into the Blue Eyes Link 1 and then work my way on my Blue Eyes combos, and then I can utilize this as a leftover level 1 so that I can go for a Spirit Dragon and into a Mimighoul if I don't want to go down the Dungeon Lock or the Ancient Fairy Dragon. The Ancient Fairy Dragon is also in there as an additional way of being able to go, okay, cool, Ancient Fairy Dragon, if I haven't opened up any route to Mimighoul cards, I can go Ancient Fairy Dragon destroys the Mausoleum, search me out dungeon, activate the dungeon, search me out either a Fairy or a Dragon, I've got follow-up for the next turn, or I can give my opponent a Dragon if I've hard opened up a room, and you just control the scenario from that point on. Then for generic cards that we are playing before we get into our hand traps, you've got the one Prosperity and the one Terraforming. So the idea behind all of this, once we work into the hand traps, is if you want to play less hand traps, you can do. And this is one thing that I completely agree with a lot of people out there, is that the format currently, you need to be playing like 10 to 15 hand traps, because every deck that is competing on a high level is playing 10 to 15 hand traps. So if you want to play less of these, of course you do open up the Mimighouls a little bit more. You can kind of turn the deck into a more aggressive, I have to win the dice roll, I have to go first, I don't care about hand traps, I want to build an unbreakable field and then let my opponent try and work their way through it with little to no success of them being able to break it and then push through for an OTK the next turn. So for the hand traps, of course, we are playing triple Ash Blossom, followed up by triple Droll. Now you can adapt the Droll however you see fit. The only little bit of additional bridge you get on this is the fact that it's a level 1 spellcaster, so you can actually just normal summon this and then go through your Blue Eyes combos, but more times than not, you're probably just going to normal summon down Sage anyway. And then, of course, you do have the 2 Effect Veiler, as they are both searchable. And then, of course, triple Infinite Impermanence and triple Purge, as the only hand trap and technical card that Purge will clash with in this entire deck will be a Relinquish Anima. If you choose to go into it, this can be a card that you can cut completely if you want to. And then the other one will, of course, be your Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, which you can side out, you can cut down. It really is up to you, but I think it's a very good habit to get yourself into, knowing that you always need to activate Ash first, then Dominus Purge. If you have the option, if you hard open up an Ash later on after using a Purge, remember you can't use this effect. You don't want to be getting called on for that and put yourself in an irreparable game state. So keep that in mind. Moving on to the extra deck, the only Mimighoul-esque cards that we play is the one Giant Mimighoul and the one Throne, and then the one Relinquish Anima. Now what I mean by the Mimighoul-esque cards is technically you probably wouldn't want to consider playing this in a normal Blue Eyes build, which you don't really want to be going, cool, normal summon Sage and then turn it off into Relinquish Anima or Maiden into Relinquish Anima. You'd much rather go into your Spirit with Eyes of Blue as your ideal Link 1. So you can take this out if you want to, but I do like this as a good option. That if I'm able to extend further, I go first, I put this into a zone, like if my opponent puts it in a zone that extra monster zone points to, okay, cool, Relinquish Anima, absorb it, and then build my plays from that point on. Unfortunately, it's not, like, the Link requires specifically a level 4 or lower, otherwise if you could use Anima for it, whoa, that'd be so good. Obviously, Giant Mimighoul is your defender, your aggressor, and kind of like an extender. And then, of course, you've got the Throne in here to get you access to the Master, give you that ability to kind of like Book of Moon your opponent's cards, but these are completely subjective, change them as you see fit. Then, of course, pretty standard, 2 Spirits and 1 Hieratic Seals. For the fusions, of course, you do play the 1 Neo and the Tyrant. This is just going to help you push through for the game with the OTK, clear your opponent's field off, and then swing in for the rest. 2 Blue Eyes Spirits, with the Blue Eyes Spirit targets being the Ultimate Spirit Dragon, the Black Rose Moonlight, the Light Storm, and of course the Ancient Fairy. These can be any targets you want to, like Azure Eyes if you wanted to. If you've got Crimson Dragon, thanks to Rarity Collection Stampede, of course you can get into that. That can then open up the door for you to go down more of the other Synchro level 12 routes. It really depends on what you have access to. And then the final card is Crystal Wing, because the idea is you want to go Blue Eyes into Spirit, Spirit into Ancient Fairy. Ancient Fairy gets you the switcheroo of the field spells, and then you work your way into Crystal Wing to protect. If you don't need to use your Ancient Fairy Dragon at all, then don't do it. The one big benefit of Ancient Fairy Dragon is that it is during the, gives you a life point boost as well, and it can also let you special on a level 4 or lower from the hand. So if you were to go first and you were to be able to work your way into the Mimighoul dungeon and you wanted to get Dragon to the field, you could use Ancient Fairy Dragon to special summon down said Dragon, and then you can open up the route to your Mimighoul engine after already starting off with your Blue Eyes engine, which is really kind of cool, and that's going to be your ideal bridge. This is why it's so good about the Ancient Fairy Dragon and how easy it is for this to be accessed to. in the Blue Eye strategy, because then it kind of facilitates loads of these hybrids that I've been showing you, because a lot of these hybrids, being able to get guaranteed access to a field spell and then guaranteed access to an Ancient Fairy Dragon just allows you to go, cool, we'll switch from one strategy to the other. And the additional benefits is when those particular cards start opening up in order to kind of utilize, like starting off with dragons or spellcasters, that's when you're going to get the most from it. Anyway, that is it for the entire profile. Once I try and find Blue Eyes, there we go. If you don't have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.